I'm Ananje Greymountain. My mother is Ojibwe and my dad is Navajo Dene. And I go here to at Western. I'm currently doing my bachelor's in fine arts, and I'm specializing in metals and jewelry.
What made you want to do art?
Well, at first I all throughout my entire life I've always been an artist, and just like that's the thing that gives me the most sense of fulfillment. But when I first came to college, I wasn't planning on doing art at all. But but then I was taking the regular classes just like to get my generals done, and I kept thinking to myself how much I missed doing art, and I just at first I was only going to take a couple of art classes just for a sense of self fulfillment again, but then I just got addicted. I'm like, life is too short to not just go down this path.
Where were you born?
I was born in Flagstaff, Arizona. Uh, it's one of the sacred mountains in Dene culture. So I don't know. That's a fun fact.
Did you grow up there long?
No, I grew up in Page, and I would oftentimes go to Navajo Mountain to visit my dad's side of the family, and I lived there until I turned 10, and then we had to move here to Michigan.
Uh, you mentioned your parents' tribal affiliations. So, is what are your tribal affiliations? Sorry, question's kind of weird.
Uh, it's kind of a weird question because even though I'm from both heritages, the American government forces you to choose one single tribe, which is a part of their genocide agenda. So whenever I'm really asked that question, I always say both instead of one because I don't like to feel like I'm letting them win.
Yeah, exactly. There's a real answer, and then there's the answer that you unfortunately have to put on paper.
Yep.
Um, what was your early childhood memories like? Growing up, and then adding on to that, when did you leave Arizona and move to Michigan?
Uh, well, they kicked me out because I was too pale. No, I'm kidding. uh, but growing up in Arizona was really nice because I was surrounded by other Navajos. Uh, so throughout my childhood, I was always surrounded and immersed in my own culture, and I really felt that connection. But then when we moved to Michigan, I was no longer able to do that because although we were technically closer to my mom's tribe, uh, I was like the only single native in all of the from elementary to through high school. So I would be in like so in high school, my school had like 3,000 students, if not more about that. And I was like one of two or three other natives, and I never even like met the other natives that were supposedly going there. And so the switch from being constantly immersed in my own culture and feeling I had that sense of community to suddenly being completely isolated, even though I was in these urban schools, I just had, there was no reflections of myself. So it really like, my memories mostly consist of that sense of isolation.
How long were you in Arizona for? Do you say 10 years?
Yeah, 10
Okay.
years. That at least that's how long I spent there. I don't know about my family's number of years, but
And did you notice any type of like learning differences in the public schools in Arizona and then in the public schools? I mean, like you expressed that you felt isolated, but like learning wise, you know, either learning just general history, history of tribal nations, history of any of those things. Did you see any?
Well, when I was in school, like in elementary school, at that point, the schools had become desegregated. So it was really nice because the classes, the curriculums would often like, they put an emphasis on talking about Native American history with alongside of like regular American history. So like we would have Navajo Culture Club. That was one of my like favorite things. They would teach us how to weave on the loom, and they would teach us how to make fry bread and tortillas and just like traditional stuff. But then and like we would even have like speakers come in like from our culture to educate us native students on our traditional teachings.
And that was in Arizona?
Yeah, Arizona. Michigan, it's a different story because it was kind of like a slap in the face. The difference being night and day of we're on the colonizers' curriculum and we're never gonna veer off of that, and even the languages in the textbooks were like very outdated. Even though I was in these urban schools that were, I would say, like pretty diverse considering the other options I could have been, uh, but it would still always like center around white America, and you can you it's just like it's so eerie, the sense of going from feeling unified to feeling like I'm being pushed away by the education system. Uh, like in the textbooks, they would like use, like I was saying earlier, they were using this outdated language where I would be like, hey, isn't it kind of weird how they are like the savage Indians attacked the the civilians? Like, isn't it kind of weird that that's how they're phrasing it when actuality it was more like uh these native people were just minding their own business, and then the colonizers started to steal from them, and so they were just trying to defend themselves. But that's not but of course no one would bat an eye at it. They would just always be like, I don't see how this is racist. I'm like, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask, is if you pushed back at or brought up or tried to bring attention to that this is weird. So, and it's unfortunate to hear. And it's almost that we kind of expect people to react like that because they don't want to confront that this is not right information and that we could choose to change it instead of giving it out continuously to people and erasing more individuals. Did you, just as this question, did you learn anything about like boarding schools in your education or from your family?
All my knowledge on boarding schools have primarily come from my own family and my own cultural experiences of like going to powwows, and maybe the MC will like bring it up, or going like to like ceremonies, and then like you hear your relatives just like talking about it amongst themselves. That's my primary education and knowledge of all this comes from. But then in school, I would be like, hey, you know that one thing that they did that was kind of really messed up? They would be like, oh, well, it sounds like you know more about it than I do. And it's like, so you're not even bothering, like you're the teacher and you're not even bothering to go out and educate yourself on this more? You're just gonna let the student educate you? And then you're not even like, you're probably just gonna like put it in the back of their brain and then never bring it up ever again. So the in terms of being educated on boarding schools and genocide and just like the treatment of natives or uh, like other like disparaged communities in general, uh, you would only be able to hear about it from word of mouth. Luckily, though, in my later high school years, when uh, I was able to go into pick my own classes of like law and sociology and stuff like that, then yeah, we'll like talk about it for like a week, and then maybe you'll end up on the final exam. But it was really nice though because high school, it kind of felt like as I was growing with the social climate, like or as I was growing, the social climate was growing with me because like in elementary school, it really started off feeling like that isolation, and then in middle school, uh, I would there would be like culture clubs starting to pop up, but it would never be a native culture club. I was just glad that like there was the African American club and there was the Latinx club, and I was just happy that those communities had that for themselves. But it would always just like I would always wish I could have that for myself.
In those like times of isolation and feeling disconnected from the school, or did you seek out help? Did you find support in your family or your like how did you stay connected with yourself
Uh,
if you did?
I guess just uh perseverance. Like I don't know. Like it was. I would stay connected to myself in those like challenging times by through my art, I guess. But uh, I don't know. It's just kind of nice because I've outlasted that, and now I'm in college where I'm in NASO, and I think that's a blessing. You know what I mean?
How has NASO changed things for you, or how is it? We'll just make it more general. How has it been being in NASO and being in this community?
Well, it finally feels like something fulfilled. Like I'm still connected with my other native friends from Arizona, and because they were able to grow up in Arizona, they still had their community, and like I would always they would talk about their own native clubs and organizations, and I'd always be like, "Dang, must be nice." And so now finally I have that for myself, and it's really nice because it no longer feels like I'm going crazy. Like when you're the only person, like when you're the only kind of person you are in like a sea of people, and like there's not really anyone else who looks like you or acts like you or talks like you, that makes you start to feel like you're going crazy. Uh, and like oftentimes I would get bullied for being native because just because people didn't know what I was. Like it was like kind of weird, a weird kind of racism of like, look at you, you're racially ambiguous. But I don't know. Uh, but now that I'm in NASO and like I finally feel like I'm back with I have a sense of family and people who understand me and the things like I've gone through, and like uh and who are able to celebrate things with me, that like without me having to like constantly lecture and explain and be forced on a soapbox. It's really nice.
Um, who what's the question I want to ask? Like, who has been very influential in past present, you know, just to you, your goals, anything? Like, who's been very influential in your life?
Well, currently, I would actually say Frank Wallen, uh, like present speaking, just because like he's the first ever like ever since I like moved away from Arizona, he's the like not only professor but like educator I've had who is also native, and that has like it's like so freeing to see myself uh in that like see someone who is like myself in like that position, you know what I mean? uh and but not only like that, but because like I'm an artist, just recently we had the Indigijam event and I set up my own like table because Naso was asking me to like set up a bunch of my artwork to show to the people who were like uh, attending, and just like his help with that, like I wouldn't have been able to do anything like that without him. Like he's like I consider him one of my mentors, and especially because he is also an artist. Like not only is he an educator, but he's an artist, so he already knows the steps that I want to take, and he already knows how to guide me on that.
Um, I guess maybe we'll switch gears a little, and I'll just ask this question, whatever answer you come from. Uh, what role does, art is storytelling, whether it's music or it's paintings or it's writings? Like, what does storytelling play? What is the role it plays in you, your family, your art, your culture, community?
Uh, the role storytelling plays, I guess. Native culture in general is really rooted like deeply on an intrinsic level of storytelling. Like our histories, our oral histories, our traditions, our oral traditions, and because I grew up in my native community, and that made it so storytelling is just like a part of my DNA. So of course it seeps out into my artwork, and ever since I can remember, like all my artwork has been rooted in storytelling. Uh, and that's one of the biggest things for me as a native artist is that storytelling. Like how just recently at the Indigijam event, I showcased my complete collection of the Navajo story, or the Navajo hero twins story, which is a part of the creation story. And I decided to make uh, an entire series worth of artwork just dedicated to that because of that storytelling tradition.
Um, so, what can be done to ensure that these, like, the values that are held can, like, remain, like, strong into the future? That makes sense.
What can be done to have our values remain? I guess, well, a lot of native cultures, one of the things we prioritize is our youth. And I notice in Western and colonial culture, a lot of the times the youth is like a second thought. And that was another part of like the slap in the face I experienced from going from living on the res to living in Kalamazoo, um, which is like the the youth and children in general are held in high esteem because Native culture acknowledges that the youth are the future, and so you must respect them and listen to them and educate them, and and so like because of that, it will, as long as we like continue to do that, of course our cultural values of like as long as we continue to prioritize children and the youth, our cultural values will inherently be carried on into the future because the youth are the future.
From the things that you've learned from your family and your tribe, are there any like traditions, or also like traditions that you've learned and hold on to?
Could you repeat that?
Um, from your family, your community, your tribe, are there like traditions that you've learned and that you hold on to that you continue on with? So.
Uh, I mean, I guess that would be a hard question to answer because like to me it's not like a shirt. Like my traditions and culture and my values, they're not like a shirt that I take on and like take off every day, but it's like my skin, you know what I mean? Like it's a part of my DNA, so it's just my everyday life that I just live natively, you know what I mean? Indigenously. Like yeah.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying. I obviously don't understand the life, but I like that gives me a solid picture about what you feel about that. Is that it's a part of your existence, like you just do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I guess one time I was like talking with my friend who is reconnecting with their own culture, and like they're Guatemalan, and they're we were talking because we're both indigenous, and so them reconnecting with their Guatemalan culture, they were hoping for like I don't know, like wisdom or something from me, and what I told them was that whether you choose to research and do the history, like research into the history and do the work to be more Guatemalan, you're always, everything you do will inherently just be a part of your indigenous culture because that is the DNA that makes you, that you are made up of. Like, you don't have to, like, that's another thing I notice sometimes is that native imposter syndrome where it's like you are already native, so you are inherently a part of your own culture. So whatever you do, it you're doing indigenously, and so what that means that you like it's just whether you choose to lead a more traditional life versus a more what's the word assimilated life, uh, that will impact your culture
mm.
and how what things are carried on or what aren't.
Did you ever experience any of that indigenous imposter syndrome, or is it's just always you're like just take it and go?
Well, it's kind of funny because um, growing up on the res, I I'm considered only half Navajo, but I'm also considered like 75% Native in general. I don't know. That's a weird uh, and just like me being half Navajo made it so sometimes like my cousins or like people at school they would or even just like your relatives like grown up now they will try to use things like blood quantum even though that is another tool of genocide they will use it to gain a sense of superiority over others and you can't let that get to you because uh, that what percentage blood is not what's important. What's important is keeping in touch with those traditions and keeping in touch with your culture and your relatives.
I don't know if I necessarily asked this question, but maybe I'll ask it differently. At, where have you, I think I might have, where have you found support?
Uh, like in general?
In general, in your struggles, in your community, like whatever your answer is, like where have you found support? If, yeah.
I guess the thing that uh, is the most morale boosting to myself would be uh, going outside and walking in nature, honestly. Uh, being separated from your culture makes it hard to find people who like understand you on an intrinsic level or integral level. But just like going out in nature has always been what's kept me going. Hiking and just being out there connecting with the earth, you know.
Um, I mean, I love that, I think people say touch grass, go out there and touch grass.
It's real. That's why you should touch grass.
we are made of the earth, and being out in it is very powerful and connecting. I can definitely agree with that. I love to just sit out in some trees.
Yep.
And then just like a couple, just I don't know, it feels generic, but like what is some advice that you would give either current or future? The question says Broncos, but I'm just gonna say people, like just in general, whether it's actually I'm gonna let you answer the question.
Advice I would give to people. Uh, I guess it's to do self-reflection. That's the most important thing. Uh, and asking yourself what matters to you, and if like you're following a path that you think is going to add something to the world.
How can indigenous ways of knowing impact the world in a positive way?
Indigenous ways of knowing. It's a mysterious question. um, well, I'm indigenous and I know a lot. No, I'm kidding. But let me think. I guess we have a lot of wisdom in our culture, and like you just have to have an eye for it. Uh, and like for example, in a lot of native cultures, like traditionally speaking, pre-contact, uh, we would like I noticed that the world is catching up to us, as in we would have respect and admiration for like the LGBT plus members of our communities. We would have respect and acknowledge like uh, we would have respect for our community members with like disabilities, or we would be a lot of like indigenous cultures are about acknowledging those differences and seeing how they can be utilized in like positive ways, because like everyone is different and that's for a reason. So the roles that we play in our life will be different, and but what I'm trying to say is that even though this was how it was for us traditionally pre-contact for like thousands of years, it's only now that I'm starting to see in modern like Western colonial society that these values are starting to be recognized and shared, of like the acceptance of like LGBT people, and the acceptance of and recognition of those with disabilities, and like the and building accessibility within our like our societal infrastructure and stuff.
what some communities think of like of others. Like,
Yeah,
you know, we're now, instead of othering them, realizing they're all
welcoming
people.
or trying to reconcile, I guess.
Yeah, that all people are deserving of
Yep.
respect and kindness because we're just peeps
Yep.
hanging out.
Like to me that's like an example of how like this is native wisdom that has in the past got us and in our present has got us called these things like savages or uncivilized when it's only now we're finally recognizing no, this is called having basic humanity, basic respect for others.
It just wasn't being packaged in the way that the people that came in taking all this stuff knew and understood.
Yeah, it's like, and then I noticed too that finally, like, Western science is catching up with the native science. Uh, like, for example, like, I'm sure if you interviewed Frank, he would have talked about this, but the Lakota people, their word for star translates to human flesh or like something around those lines. And so finally, only recently, have they discovered that all the matter on like Earth, like our own flesh, is made out of the stardust of those like exploded stars.
We are made of the things that are around us.
Yep.
We
It's
are.
like who would have known? No one. If you're not counting natives, apparently. Just kidding. I'm sure like other cultures, but like you know what I mean of like that erasure of our traditions and cultures has is a detriment because it sets us back.
Yeah, by not acknowledging what's real and forcing
Mm-hmm.
uh, narratives that benefit particular individuals.
Yep.
Yeah, and you start to not see what's true.
Yep. It's almost
Uh,
like uneducated society is easier to control or something.
Crazy how that might be true. um, I guess I'll ask just one more question then. Any other comments, questions? If you want to say anything else, you sure can. But I like this one. It's like, what does it mean to be a good ancestor to you?
To be a good ancestor would, to me, when I hear that question or like when I hear that command, is uh, don't be greedy, don't be selfish, don't just think about yourself all the time. Like a part of the reason that we're in our current state of the world of like pollution and the earth trying to kill us back is because of all that greed and selfishness. Uh, and so it makes it so generations who are being born afterwards are the ones who are being forced to deal with these consequences instead of the people who are now and who have that power to deal with it, dealing with it. They just want to sweep it under the rug for their own benefit instead. But you didn't hear me say that.
Like, these people aren't thinking about the term that I've heard is the 7 generations after us.
Mm-hmm.
They're just thinking about them, and as long as they make it.
Yep.
So we've got to be thinking about those, not just our children or their children, but like there's people who come after that. I'm with you.
A random tangent I have about like sustainability is that it's kind of like funny to me when people are saying we're killing the earth. Like, yeah, we are killing the earth, but more importantly, if we don't get our act together, the earth is gonna kill us. Like the earth is still gonna be here once it's so uninhabitable that we're not able to live here. You know what I mean?
It will do whatever it takes to heal itself.
Yeah, it's gonna do whatever it needs to do to regain that balance.
If that means heat everything up, that things just start to die and it resets. I mean, the earth
Yep.
came from fire and ash, and then there was life that grew out of it. So it'll still be here.
Yep. So it's like people should. I feel like the mentality should be like really thinking more about that threat of death that is going to come for us. You know what I mean?
I'm with you. Think very strongly about,
or that promise of death if we don't get our act together, or the corporations don't get their act together.
but that's just the resilience and fighting to keep that from happening if we can. I definitely loved everything you've said and all of your information. Is there any other comments, questions, concerns, things you want to put in?
I guess I'd like to talk about my metalsmithing.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it was kind of funny because I already told you about how like I kind of became an art student by accident. But what's even funnier to me is while I was like in the art school, like my first couple of years while I was taking, or couple of years, my first year and a half of taking the foundations courses, I was technically considered just a BA, not a BFA. So, but I knew that I wanted eventually to move into and transfer into the BFA side of things. So, like that's what was going on in the back of my head. But one day, when I was behind on signing up for classes, like it was like the last moment, and finally my advisor was like, "Hey, Anjay, are you gonna be a student or what? You kind of need classes." And I'm like, "All right, all right, all right." So I met with him, and then he was like, "You need 2 studio courses, and one of them's gonna be your last foundations class, and then the other one is you can either take this one class that happens at like 9 p.m. at night, or you can take this one other class where it's the only one that has seats left." And I'm like, that's in the morning. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the morning class? And he was like, it's the metalsmithing one. And so it was kind of funny because all throughout my education, I've never gotten the chance to really explore that kind of world. And it was always on my bucket list because I'm Navajo, Dene, and a big part of our own culture is our silversmithing. And so I'm like, I'm gonna take the metals class. But so I joined the course, and it was really like I had the best time of my life. I was just hammering away, setting stuff on fire, and the professor was asking me to like she went out of her way to ask me to like become a metals major, and I felt so like honored and recognized. I was like, all right, I'll do it. And like just like that anecdote always makes me think about how it feels like sometimes it really felt like my ancestors were just like putting me on that path because everything happened by coincidence. But now I'm here metalsmithing, and right now I'm raising money to go to Greece so then I can study under some goldsmiths. And so that's what I'm excited for. But yeah, just like I always think about that because I recently learned that actually my great grandpa and my grandpa were silversmiths. So I'm like, dang, it's like it's in my DNA.
And everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And you find the passions and the things that you want to be working on.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That's, I can't think of what the word I want to use is. What, maybe like serendipitous? That these things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish you well in all the things that you're doing, especially the metalsmithing, and that you will get the money that you need to go and do that, because experiencing things outside of our space and especially outside of our country, I think is crucial to
Yep.
learning from other people in other places.
I agree. it also really helps with that retrospection of our own circumstances and how things could be different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what helps us improve ourselves.